when when you find yourself in a position where you kind of have to adjust things, and let me turn my clip off so that you can sort of see the native views. So here's what I have. I can kind of see into my box, and I'm looking through, and I'm trying to snap to things, but it's really annoying because I've got this giant surface in my way, right? Most of you have figured it out by now without me telling you, but to kind of combat that, your layers are going to be your best friend. So if I turn off my box layer, I now have my inside geometry completely exposed. That's the beauty of layers. So I've sort of walked you through setting up different layers for this geometry now, but when you're making your own, be clever about which items you're putting on separate layers. Usually, if I'm modeling anything, doesn't matter what it is, if it's a different material or a different system or function, I make a different layer for it, all the way down to like the door would be, or rather like the whiteboard back here. So I would make the actual whiteboard drawing space on a layer. I would make the frame on another layer, right? And that actually plays into best practices for the future too, because when you do renderings and you're applying material, it's very easy to apply it by layer. It's not very easy to apply it by surface. To say, oh, this frame, I want the front face, and then the side face, and then the top face, and then the bottom face, and then the right face to be aluminum, right? You might as well just say anything that's assigned to the aluminum frames layer is going to be aluminum, right? We're all smart enough to figure that out. But in the model, right, so some of you now have different conditions, which brings up some troubleshooting issues. Some of you have a floor that was set above the original work plane. So you have a stair that's actually going down into your floor plate. So this is not a design class. I don't care about you guys having exactly the same model as me. Obviously, we have different results. But for those of you who need to adapt, now you need to figure out, how do I move it up? So real quick, object snaps are going to be your best friend here. They're also going to be your worst enemy. So we're getting a little bit further into the purpose of the project feature, because if I want to move this up and I want to move it from the bottom, because right now you see in my right view I'm aligned to the bottom of my slab. I can take my second floor and my stair family and just move it up. The very simple way is to say move, and in perspective I can move it from the bottom corner to the top corner. And see, that moved it exactly straight up, and that's because I know that the bottom of my slab and the top of my slab are exactly in the z-axis. That works fine. But what happens when it's not? If it's an angled slab and they kind of tilt out, and you can't snap to anything that's directly above. This is the key. You can, and let me put this on the edge actually, so it illustrates it a little bit better. Let's say I'm looking at it from, I'm going to switch to the left view. So now you can see I'm actually looking at it from this side in this view, and I'm going to try and move it up. So I'm going to, look at it in perspective. I see it on the end, and I say, all right, I'm going to move it up. So I go from this point, but my slab's a little bit wonky, and I want to move it up on this view. So I click, and that's what it did. So why did it do that? Anybody? Right, and how do you fix that? It accidentally selected the wrong point, even though here it looks correct, and it slid it across the model. How do you fix that? Huh? Well, in this case, because it's a simplified example, you can just, click both points in perspective. That's the easiest way. But if you can't and you're skewed, use project. If you want to move it up and you don't know how high it is, let's say move face, click that, hit enter, and I move it up to a random height. I have no idea how tall that is, so I can't just do a move command and move it up. So I activate the move command. I can't just say I want to start here and go to however high that is. I don't know how high that is. So I want to use intersect and project to help me figure that out. So now, doesn't matter which of these points I grab, if I have project on, and I'm going to show you with the backside so that you can see what it does. My intersect object snap is turned on. I activate move. I grab it here, and I hold shift, and I can move straight up to wherever it intersects another surface. Doesn't matter what it is. And I click, and it's good to go. So I know it's tough to understand precisely, where this is going to save a lot of time, but when we get into some really complex forms, well, actually, let me model one for you. So this is going to get a little wild, I think, for a second. Let me draw a spline, and don't necessarily try to do this right now. And I'm going to draw another spline that looks kind of like that. There. Okay, so I created a really crazy surface. There is no telling how high a single point is on that surface. So what I can do is move it with a reference point. So if I want it, actually this does need to be on the edge. Let's say I want to move my bottom stair to match wherever it, in the vertical plane, wherever it intersects the edge of that curve. So I can't really do it here in perspective, because when I grab this corner, I try to move it up and I just can't. There's no way to grab it while I'm kind of roving around like this. There's no telling. Intersect, but what is it intersecting? It's not going straight up. So this is what you do. You have to do it in your orthogonal view. So you go to the left view, you activate the move command, make sure project is on, and you click here and you hold shift and you can move it up to intersect right there, or even right there. I think this is the one we needed. Okay? Making more sense now? Yeah. So warped surface. We'll get to warped surfaces here in a little bit, but a couple weeks probably. Yes.
What exactly does project do? Like, what does it?
Okay. What exactly does project do? Perhaps because my box is at the origin, it's not really clear. But let me do this. Now my box is kind of floating off the origin, somewhere in space. Okay? If I'm working in the, one of my side views, I guess, and I want to draw the profile of the stair so that I can borrow it for some other purpose later on. Maybe I want to draw a wall panel that follows the profile of the stair. So I can activate, I'll draw it on the slab layer, I guess. I can activate the polyline command, project is on, and take a look, which way am I viewing it here? Yeah, I'll view it kind of like this. So I'm still looking at it in the left view. But so as I'm drawing the stair here, See where it's drawing it in perspective? I'm not going to do the whole thing, but look at where it drew it in perspective. Okay, and then look back down at your origin and see where it is in these views. So project moves all of your points to the origin work plane from wherever you're drawing, except the perspective view. If I trace anything in perspective, it's going to draw it on the base work plane. So draw, I'll grab it here and there and there, on that side there, and I'll close it off there. So I just drew the footprint, but it took every point that I drew and it moved it down to the XY 0 Z level. Is that clear? Is that more helpful than seeing it all at the origin? Okay. So what you'll find workflow wise is that it's a heavily utilized tool for when you're trying to borrow something from a model that's not a, when you're trying to borrow profiles, I should say, because you're going to have some really crazy stuff and a profile is going to be really useful. What else? Yes. I'm going to stop this video here. Then I'm going to move into more model modification shortcuts. And these are going to be heavily focused on kind of the move face, move edge features and copies and pastes that are going to be a little bit more intuitive, and that would be the gumball. Okay, so that's like a new mega feature for you.